Yeah. Subscribe to the channel. A lawyer took an old pen from his father to a court hearing. But when the judge looked at his table, he was shocked and fainted when he recognized the pen. Lawyer Diego Mendoza was in full shape. The year-old had a firm and confident voice that resonated throughout the court. The judge's eyes followed each of his words as he finalized his argument with the passion and determination that had always characterized him. He felt invincible at that moment, sure that he was about to win another crucial case in his career. Judge Gabriel Contreras, a man of years known for his severity and rectitude, observed carefully. But something suddenly changed in his expression when his eyes fixed on the pen in Diego's hands. And with this, gentlemen, I conclude that the only fair decision is the absolution of my client, declared Diego, raising the pen to put a final point to his notes. It was then that he noticed the pallidity on Gabriel's face. The judge, normally imperturbable, was visibly affected. Before Diego could process what was happening, Gabriel took off his seat, with his eyes blank before losing consciousness. "My God, the judge has fainted," he exclaimed, one of the members of the court, breaking the atonite silence that had invaded the room. In an instant, the court became chaos. While the paramedics were urgently called, Diego remained standing, the pen still in his hand, feeling as if he were in a surrealist dream. What happened? He thought, trying to understand the judge's extreme reaction. The paramedics arrived quickly, doing everything possible to stabilize Judge Gabriel Contreras. Diego watched, perplexed, unable to take his eyes off the judge. I felt a wave of emotions found, concern for Gabriel's state, confusion about what had caused the fainting, and a growing curiosity about the feather that he held. That seemingly simple object now seemed to have a great weight, as if it were the key to a deep mystery. The feather in question was a deep blue tone, elegant and distinctive. He had a small inscription of a heart interlaced with the initials G and M at the top, a detail that Diego had never noticed before. In addition, there was a golden stain on the lid, a manufacturing defect that made it unique. Diego could not help but wonder how something so small could cause such a drastic reaction in someone as firm as Gabriel Contreras. While the paramedics were looking after Gabriel, Diego felt that all the glances in the room were turning towards him. He tried to concentrate on anything that could explain the situation, but his mind was in a whirlpool. Why would this feather cause such a reaction? He asked incessantly. He knew he had to discover the truth behind that object. The seed of curiosity had planted deeply in his heart. Gabriel Contreras was taken to the hospital quickly, while the session was abruptly closed. The court, before a place of order and structure, was now immersed in chaos and uncertainty. Diego, still stunned, tried to organize his thoughts. He felt that something bigger was at stake, something he needed to discover. Diego decided to leave the court, feeling the weight of the curious and worried looks of the present. He walked towards his car, but his hands did not stop shaking. The journey back to the office was a fog of fragmented thoughts and unanswered questions. He knew there was something more in the story of that feather, something he needed to unravel. It is possible that this feather has a story that I do not know, he reflected as he tightened the wheel with force. When he arrived at his office, Diego closed the door and sat down at his desk, carefully placing the pen in front of him. He stayed there for a moment, simply looking at it, trying to remember if his mother, Elena, had mentioned anything special about that object. At the end of the day, Diego returned home, still disturbed by the events of the court. During dinner, he could not hide his concern for his mother, Elena. They had always had a close relationship, and she immediately noticed that something was wrong. "What happened today, son? You seem so worried," Elena asked, putting a plate of food in front of him. Diego sighed, feeling the tension in his body while he was preparing to tell what had happened in the court. "Mom, something strange happened today in the court. Judge Gabriel Contreras fainted when he saw this pen, said Diego, pointing to the object that he had placed on the kitchen table. Elena looked at the pen, closing her eyes while trying to understand what Diego was saying. What pen is that? Where did you buy it? Elena asked, her voice full of curiosity and concern. I didn't buy this pen, Mom. I found it in Dad's office. I was in a hurry to sign a document, and I ended up taking the pen at random and taking it to the court. I don't understand why this would have caused such a reaction in the judge, explained Diego, his mind still spinning with possibilities. Elena took the pen and carefully examined it, but she seemed as confused as Diego. This is very strange. Diego, I don't understand why this pen would cause such an impact. It looks like a common pen, although beautiful, she said, returning the pen to Diego. Diego looked at the pen again. Feeling even more determined to discover the truth, I need to know more about this pen, and because it had such a strong effect on Judge Contreras. Maybe there is some connection between the judge and my father, he thought. Diego's father, Roberto Mendoza, was a brilliant lawyer, known for his integrity and passion for justice. His dedication to work inspired Diego from a young age. Roberto had died a few years ago, leaving a legacy of courage and honesty that Diego had always tried to follow. Roberto's death was a hard blow for the family, but his memory was still alive, especially in his actions and in Diego's heart. Diego was determined to discover the truth about the pen and what had caused the extreme reaction of Judge Contreras. He knew he would need to talk to the judge to better understand the situation, but he decided to wait a few days, imagining that Contreras would still be recovering in the hospital. Meanwhile, curiosity and anxiety only increased. One morning, while I was in the office checking documents, Diego's phone rang. He answered without much expectation, but his expression changed immediately when he heard the voice on the other side of the line. Hello, I'm talking to lawyer Diego Mendoza? Yes, it's me, answered Diego, immediately recognizing the voice of Judge Contreras. Diego, we need to talk. I'm very worried and I would like to talk to you in person, said Contreras, with the obvious tension in his voice. I also want to talk to you, Judge. I already imagined you would call me, said Diego, feeling a mixture of relief and anxiety. Diego accepted, feeling that he would finally get some answers. He quickly prepared and drove to the judge's house, his heart beating faster every kilometer traveled. Upon arrival, Diego was received by Contreras, who seemed more pale and downcast than normal. They sat in the living room, a cozy atmosphere that contrasted with the tension in the air. Diego, this feather belonged to someone very special to me. Contreras began, looking at the object in Diego's hands. I gave it to my girlfriend, Mariana, years ago. She mysteriously disappeared, and I never knew about her again. Contreras then changed his tone, becoming more inquisitive. Where did you find this feather? He asked, with an obvious distrust in his voice. This pen is different from all the others. I know it's the same because I recorded it with a heart and the initials G and M. Diego felt the weight of suspicion in the voice of Contreras and tried to defend himself quickly. I didn't buy this pen, sir. I found it in my father's office, Roberto Mendoza. I was in a hurry to sign a document, and I ended up taking the pen at random. It seemed very beautiful and different to me. It was my father's. Feeling a mixture of anxiety and determination, Contreras frowned, clearly disturbed by the revelation. But how did that pen, which I gave to my girlfriend many years ago, end up in your father's office? He asked, increasing the tension in the air. My father was Ricardo Mendoza. He was also a lawyer and a great inspiration for me, said Diego, trying to offer some clarity. Contreras looked at Diego, his face expressing a deep confusion. Ricardo Mendoza? I never knew any Ricardo Mendoza, he said, shaking his head slowly. Your father never mentioned having met someone with that name. Diego felt a chill run through his back. Contreras' story only increased the mystery. How was my father, Ricardo Mendoza, involved in this story? He thought, his determination growing at every moment. Judge Contreras, I really don't know how that feather came to my father's hands, but I'm as perplexed as you. We need to find out what really happened, said Diego, trying to keep calm. There is something we are not seeing here. We need to find out what really happened with Mariana and how this feather came to your father's hands, Contreras replied, with the obvious tension in his voice. Diego returned home with a mind full of questions and a new purpose. He knew that the trip would be long and difficult, but he was willing to face any obstacle to discover the truth. I need to know how this feather came to my father's hands. Maybe there is something in his past that can give us clues, he thought, feeling a mixture of anxiety and determination. Checking the belongings of the office of his deceased father, Ricardo Mendoza. While looking for something that could explain the reaction of Judge Contreras, he found an old wooden trunk. Inside it, there were old letters yellowish by the time. The letters were from a woman named Mariana, and they were addressed to Judge Gabriel Contreras. The letters mentioned a deep relationship and an unexpected pregnancy. Diego was perplexed, trying to understand how those letters had arrived at his father's office and what the pregnancy of Mariana meant for all this story. Diego sat at the kitchen table, the letters scattered in front of him. He knew he needed to talk to his mother, Elena, about what he had discovered. When she entered the kitchen, she raised her eyes, feeling a mixture of anger and confusion. "Mom, we need to talk about these letters," said Diego, with a tense voice. Elena looked at the letters, and her expression immediately changed to one of concern. "What letters are those, Diego?" Elena asked, sitting next to him. "They are letters from a woman named Mariana. She mentioned a relationship with Judge Contreras and that she was pregnant. I found these letters among Dad's belongings." "What do you know about this?" asked Diego, with his eyes fixed on Elena. Elena turned her gaze away, visibly uncomfortable. I don't know, Diego. Maybe it's better to leave it like that," he said, trying to change the subject. Diego immediately realized that his mother was hiding something. "Mom, don't try to avoid it. You know something about this, right?" He pressed, with determination in his voice. Elena breathed deeply. The tears began to form in his eyes. "Diego, there is something you need to know, something that your father and I never had the courage to tell you. You are adopted," he said, with a trembling voice. Diego felt that the ground disappeared under his feet. "Adopted? How could they hide that from me?" he asked, raising his voice, feeling betrayed. Elena dried up the tears that began to run down her face. "We are always afraid of your reaction, Diego. We wanted to protect you. We are always afraid that something terrible would have happened to Mariana. And that's why we decided to raise you as our own son," she explained with a deep sigh. Diego suddenly got up, passing his hand through his hair. "This is incredible. They have lied to me all my life," he exclaimed, feeling a mixture of anger and sadness. "I know it seems selfish, but we did it out of love for you. We wanted you to have a normal life, full of love and affection," said Elena, trying to justify her actions. "I need to know the whole truth, Mom. How did I get to you? Who brought those letters and the pen?" asked Diego, feeling the urgent need for answers. "It was through a man named Hector, who came to our lives bringing you. Your father, Ricardo, owed him some favors. Hector was an aggressive man and always caused problems, but he helped your father get his first job as a lawyer. That is why your father felt that he owed him something," she explained with a trembling voice. Elena continued, with a voice full of emotion. "Hector appeared in our house with you, a newborn baby. He brought a backpack with some belongings, including those cards. He told us he needed to leave you with us and disappeared for 3 months. When he came back, He only asked if you were okay and then disappeared forever. Since then, we never knew about him again, Elena said, weeping more tears. I cannot believe it. Hector simply appeared with a baby, and you accepted it? Asked Diego, still trying to process it all. Diego, we couldn't have children. When Hector brought you, we saw it as a gift, an opportunity to have the family we always dreamed of. We raised you with all the love we could give, but it was a mistake not to tell the truth from the beginning. Diego looked at the pen and the cards, trying to put together the pieces of the puzzle. Then, Hector is the key to understanding all this. But why did he bring exactly those cards and that pen? He asked, more for himself than for Elena. I think the pen was in the backpack along with the other belongings. Everything is very confusing, but I think Hector had some kind of connection with Mariana. Maybe I knew more about what happened to her, Elena said, thoughtful. Diego felt a mixture of hope and despair. I need to find out where Mariana is, if she is really my biological mother. And Judge Contreras is my father. That changes everything. But how am I going to find answers without knowing where Hector is? He asked, with a voice full of frustration. I know you will find the answers you are looking for. We will be by your side, no matter what happens, said Elena, holding Diego's hand tightly. Decided to find answers. Diego decided to return to the office of his late father, Ricardo Mendoza. The office, full of documents and memories, looked like a maze of secrets waiting to be unveiled, searching for any clue that could connect him to Hector. After hours of meticulous search, Diego found an old file with the name Hector Navarro. Upon opening the file, he found a photo of a man with a severe appearance, with penetrating eyes and an implacable expression. That is him, without a doubt, thought Diego, feeling a cold. He needed to show that to Elena. When entering the kitchen, she put the photo and papers on the table and called her mother. Mom, I need you to see this, said Diego, pointing to Hector's photo. Is this the man who brought those letters and the pen? Elena looked at the photo, her face pale. Yes, Diego, it's him. That's Hector Navarro. He was the one who brought you to us, she confirmed, with a trembling voice of emotion. Diego felt a mixture of anger and relief when he heard Elena's statement. Realizing that he needed professional help to investigate the complex network of secrets, Diego decided to hire a private detective. He had heard about Luisa, a detective known for her cunning and determination. Luisa was famous for solving complicated cases and had an impeccable reputation. Diego felt that she would be the ideal person to help him unravel the mystery. Luisa accepted the case enthusiastically, recognizing the importance of finding Mariana and Hector and solving the mysteries that surrounded Diego's life. They found themselves in a discreet cafe to discuss the details of the case. Luisa, with her penetrating and confident look, immediately began to ask incisive questions. I need all the information you have about Hector and Mariana. Each detail can be crucial, said Luisa, while she was writing everything down in her notebook. I found these documents in my father's office. They show a strong connection between my father and Hector. We also have these letters from Mariana, which mention a pregnancy and a relationship with Judge Contreras. I need to find out what happened to Mariana and how Hector is involved. Delivering the papers to Luisa. Luisa carefully examined the documents. This is a good start. We will need to follow the clues and see where they take us. I will start by investigating the last movements of Hector and any connection that he may have with Mariana, she said, already formulating an action plan. Diego felt relieved to see the efficiency and dedication of Luisa. Thank you, Luisa. I know you will find the answers we need. This means a lot to me, he said, sincerely grateful. Diego, let's solve this together. I will start my investigations immediately, and I will keep you informed about any progress, said Luisa, with a smile decided. With Luisa by his side, Diego felt that he was finally on the right track. With the help of Luisa, we will unmask Hector and find Mariana, no matter what it costs, thought Diego, feeling more confident and determined than ever. Diego returned to the office, eager to see the first results of the research of Luisa. He knew that every step would bring them closer to the truth. We need to be quick and careful. Hector is dangerous and will probably do everything possible to protect his secrets, he thought, reflecting on the complexity of the case. That night, Diego and Luisa began to draw a detailed plan. They decided to follow each clue meticulously, without leaving any stone untouched. The determination of both was palpable, and Diego felt that, finally, he was about to unravel the mystery that enveloped his life. Luisa was determined to find Hector and discover the secrets After days of intensive investigation, he finally discovered a clue about Hector's whereabouts. He had been seen in a small town, living discreetly. The news brought a mixture of relief and apprehension for Diego. Diego, I have a clue. Hector was seen in a small town. I think we should go there to confront him, said Luisa, showing the information he had. Diego felt a knot in his stomach. We need to be careful, Luisa. Hector is dangerous. We don't know what he can do, he replied, trying to keep calm. I agree, but this may be our only chance to find answers. Let's get ready and leave early tomorrow, Luisa said, with a firmness that made Diego feel a little more confident. The trip to the small town was tense. Both reflected on their expectations and fears. Diego, especially, was anxious to finally confront the man who had brought so much chaos to his life. Will he tell us the truth? Will Mariana be alive? He thought, looking out the window of the car. When they arrived at the town, they began to ask questions discreetly, trying not to. Finally, they found a man who recognized Hector by the description and pointed out where he was living. Diego and Luisa exchanged a significant look before heading to the place. Diego and Luisa arrived at the house where Hector was living. The tension was palpable as they approached the door. Diego hit hard, his heart accelerated. After a few moments of silence, the door opened, revealing Hector. He looked older and worn out, but his eyes still had the same dangerous shine. What do you want? Hector asked, with obvious distrust in his voice. We need to talk to you about Mariana and what happened years ago, said Diego, trying to keep his voice firm. Hector initially denied any involvement in the disappearance of Mariana. I don't know what they're talking about. I don't know any Mariana, he said, trying to close the door. But Diego prevented the door from closing. It is useless to lie. Hector, we know that Mariana was the bride of Judge Gabriel Contreras. We want the truth, insisted Diego, his evident determination. Hector lied again, trying to divert the subject. I do not know any Gabriel Contreras. They are confused by person, he said. Diego was firm, looking at Hector with intensity. Hector, it's no use lying. We have documents and witnesses that link you to Mariana and Judge Contreras. If you don't tell us the truth now, we'll take everything to the police, said Diego, with a voice full of determination. Hector couldn't stand the pressure, finally sighed, the resistance fading away. Okay, I'll tell you everything, but you will not like what you are going to hear, he said, the voice loaded with guilt and regret. Continue, said Luisa, encouraging him to speak. I kidnapped Mariana as revenge against Gabriel Contreras. He sentenced me to years in prison. I was very angry and planned my revenge during all the time I was in prison. I discovered that the judge had a romance with Mariana, but I did not know that she was pregnant. His eyes darkened as he remembered the past. Diego asked, confused, but why? What did you want exactly? He asked, trying to understand Hector's hatred. Hector sighed, looking tired. When I kept her captive, he told me about his pregnancy. I thought about using that to blackmail Contreras and forced her to write letters. But then I had a motorcycle accident and I broke my leg. My plan started to go wrong, he explained with a bitter voice. Hector continued, revealing more dark details. My leg got infected and I started to feel very bad. I paid a beggar to take care of Mariana. She even attended the delivery. When I came back from the hospital, I saw Mariana with the baby. I got desperate. I didn't know what to do. One day, Mariana tried to escape. There was a fight and she fell and hit her head. I thought he was dead, said Hector, his voice trembling as he remembered the moment. Diego was horrified. And what happened to the baby? What did you do? He asked, feeling a mixture of anger and despair. I took the baby and went directly to Ricardo's house. He was the only person I trusted. I left the baby there and returned to captivity. When I arrived, Mariana's body was no longer there. I thought he had escaped. I was afraid of being reported and fled, said Hector, with tears running down his face. Diego felt a deep pain when he heard the story. So, don't you know where Mariana is? You never saw her again? He asked, with a voice full of emotion. I never saw her again. I don't even know if she's alive. I just know I regret everything. I've lived with fear since then. He admitted, his voice breaking. Diego felt a deep sadness when he heard the story. It is true. The baby was raised by a good family, said Diego, looking directly into Hector's eyes. Do you know the family that raised the baby? Hector asked, with a confused expression. Diego said, yes, I know them. I am Diego Mendoza. I was raised by Elena and Ricardo Mendoza. He said, waiting for Hector to understand what that meant. Hector was shocked, with trembling hands. Then are you the baby? Are you Mariana and Contreras' son? Hector was stunned, unable to believe what he heard. Yes, it's me, said Diego, feeling a wave of emotions invade him. Hector began to get nervous. When he realized the magnitude of his actions and the consequences they had brought. My God, said Hector, with a trembling voice, while the reality of his situation fell on him. He was stunned, speechless, the weight of his actions finally falling on his shoulders. Diego and Luisa kept silence for a moment, processing everything they had heard. Hector's revelations were shocking and changed everything. Mariana can be alive. I need to find her, Diego thought, feeling a new wave of determination. Hector, still nervous and moved by the revelations, tried to recompose. Diego and Luisa watched him carefully, waiting for any information that could take them to Mariana. Finally, Hector began to speak. I kept Mariana in an abandoned cabin in the forest, near a small town called San Rafael. She managed to escape from there, but she never knew what happened next, said Hector, with her voice full of regret. Diego and Luisa exchanged determined looks. Let's go to San Rafael. We need to investigate that cabin and find any clues about Mariana's whereabouts, said Luisa, her mind already planning the next steps. Thank you, Hector. I hope you understand the seriousness of what you did. We're going to find Mariana and bring her back, said Diego, his tone firm, but with a touch of compassion. Hector gave them Mariana's physical description. With the new information, Diego and Luisa immediately set off towards San Rafael. The trip was long and tiring, but the hope of finding Mariana alive renewed their strength. We're coming, Mariana. Hold on, Diego thought, as he drove through the winding roads towards the small town. Upon arriving at the cabin, the scene was desolate. The place was abandoned and in ruins. They began to investigate each corner, looking for any sign that Mariana had been there. They found some personal objects that indicated that someone had lived there for a while, but nothing concrete about where Mariana could be now. We need to look for more clues. He must have left something when he escaped, said Luisa, examining the ground in search of footprints or any direction clue. After hours of search, Diego found a piece of fabric stuck in a bush near the cabin. Luisa, I think I found something. This fabric seems recent. She may have passed through here, said Diego, showing the piece of fabric. The discovery renewed the hope of both. They followed the trail left by the fabric, advancing through the forest with caution, but with determination. Each step seemed heavier, but the idea of finding Mariana alive drove them to continue. After hours of walking, they arrived at a small village. They asked the locals if they had seen a woman who coincided with the description of Mariana. An old woman mentioned that there was a woman living on the outskirts of the village, in precarious conditions. It could be her. Let's go there, said Diego, feeling the heart beat faster with the possibility of finally finding his mother. Upon arriving at the indicated place, they found a simple and worn-out cabin. Diego breathed deeply before knocking on the door. When the door opened, appeared a woman with a fragile appearance and a distant look. Diego immediately recognized Mariana's features, despite the time and difficulties she had faced. Mariana, said Diego, with a broken voice of emotion. Tears ran down her face when she saw the woman she had been looking for. Mariana, confused, went back a little. Who are you? What do you want here? She asked, his voice trembling with fear and disorientation. Diego, trying to hold back his tears, slowly approached him. I know someone who misses you a lot and wanted to see you, he said with a kind and hopeful tone. Then he took out a pen from his backpack and showed it to him. Mariana looked at the pen and, suddenly, a memory seemed to emerge in his mind. That pen, a boyfriend gave it to me. I have memory problems, but I remember this. Diego, with a tight heart, said with a trembling voice. Diego sighed, feeling a knot in his throat. Gabriel Contreras asked, observing his reaction. Mariana confirmed with a slight head movement. Yes, Gabriel. I haven't seen him in years. I had a son of his, but I don't know where he is, he said, the tears rolling down his face. Diego, with a tight heart, she responded in a cut-off voice. I am me. I am your son, she said with tears flowing. Mariana was scared and took a step back. My God, are you serious? She asked, her voice full of disbelief and surprise. Yes, Mom, it's true, said Diego, trying to calm her down. Mariana was visibly affected, trying to process the revelation. Luisa intervened. Perceiving the tension in the air, Mariana, let me explain everything to you. We did an investigation, and thanks to what Hector revealed to us, we managed to find you, said Luisa, with a calm and comforting voice. Luisa told Mariana the whole investigation, from the discovery of the feather to the encounter with Hector and the intense search that led them to her. Mariana, still scared, began to understand what had happened. I don't know what to say. It's too much to assimilate, said Mariana, her voice full of emotion. Diego took Mariana's hand with affection. Let's get over this together, Mom. I'm here to help you. Let's take you to a safe place and take care of you, he said with a soft voice tone. Mariana, still emotionally affected, slowly felt. Thank you, Diego. I want to understand everything, he said, with a mixture of hope and fear. Diego and Luisa knew that Mariana's recovery would be long and difficult, but they were ready to face every challenge. We will help you remember, Mom. We will do it together, said Diego, taking Mariana's hand firmly. That night, while the moon gently illuminated the cabin, Diego, Luisa, and Mariana sat together, starting to rebuild the lost pieces of the past. The journey was far from ending, but the hope and love they felt for each other strengthened them for the challenges that were yet to come. Mariana was taken to a hospital, where she received the necessary care for her recovery. Diego and Luisa stayed by her side, dedicating themselves to helping her recover her memories and rebuild her life. Their constant presence, along with Elena's support, accelerated the process of Mariana's healing. Diego held Mariana's hand while she rested in the hospital bed. "Mom, we're here for you. Let's go through this together," he said with a soft and comforting tone. Mariana, with her eyes still closed, slightly squeezed Diego's hand. "Thank you, Diego. I feel like I'm starting to remember some things, but everything is still very confusing," she replied, her voice weak but full of determination. Luisa was by her side, watching the scene with a smiling face. "Mariana, it's normal that you take time. The important thing is that you're safe now. We're going to help you remember everything," she said, trying to reassure her. The next few days, Mariana began to progress. The memories came in flashes, sometimes painful, but she was determined to face her past. Diego and Luisa were always present, ready to offer support and affection. "Diego, I remember Gabriel. I remember how we met and how he gave me the pen," Mariana said one day, with eyes full of tears. "I want to see him again." Diego smiled, feeling his heart warm when he saw his mother's progress. "Let's tell him everything. Mom, he deserves to know that you are alive. We have to get ready to go to her house," said Diego, determined. Elena, who visited Mariana daily, also offered her support. "Mariana, you are a strong woman. I am here for what you need. Let's face this together," said Elena, holding Mariana's other hand. With the support of everyone, Mariana began to gain more confidence. He participated in therapy sessions to help organize his memories and deal with trauma. Diego was always present, eager to see his mother completely recovered. One afternoon, while walking through the hospital garden, Mariana looked at Diego with a smile. "I'm starting to feel like myself again. Thanks for not giving up on me," Diego said with gratitude. Diego stopped and looked into Mariana's eyes. "You are my mother, and I would never give up on you. We are together in this," he said with conviction. With Mariana's recovery advancing, Diego knew that the next step would be to reveal everything to Contreras. "Mom, it's time to tell everything to Gabriel. You need to know that you are alive and that I am your son. Let's get ready to go home," said Diego, feeling a mixture of anxiety and hope. Mariana felt her eyes shining with expectation. "Yes, Diego, I can't wait to see my great love again. Let's tell her the whole truth," she said determinedly. That night, Diego, Luisa, and Mariana met to plan the visit to Contreras. They knew it would be an intense and emotional moment, but they were. "Let's bring the truth to light and rebuild our lives," thought Diego, while they were preparing for the day that was to come. Diego was nervous while he was marking Gabriel Contreras' number. He knew that the revelation would be a shock for the judge, but it was necessary. When Contreras answered, Diego breathed deeply before speaking. "Judge Contreras, I am Diego. I discovered the truth about the pen, and I need to talk to you. Can I make a visit?" asked Diego, trying to keep his voice firm. "Of course, Diego, come. I'll be waiting for you," replied Contreras, with a hint of curiosity in his voice. Diego prepared for the visit, taking care of himself. He looked at Mariana, who was also preparing. Nervousness grew in his chest. How the judge will react when seeing Mariana and knowing that he has a son? Diego thought, feeling a mixture of anxiety and hope. On the way to the house of Contreras, Diego could not hide the tension. Mariana, by his side, seemed calm, but Diego knew she was nervous too. Luisa, the detective, accompanied them, ready to offer support. When they arrived at the house of Contreras, Diego breathed deeply before knocking on the door. The door opened, revealing to the judge, who received them with a kind smile, but the smile disappeared when his eyes fixed on Mariana. "Mariana, is that you?" Contreras shouted, moving forward to hug her. The moment was full of emotion, with tears rolling down the faces of both. Contreras was in shock, but also full of joy. "Yes, Gabriel, it's me, I'm back," Mariana said, hugging him tightly. Contreras turned to Diego, tears still in his eyes. "Diego, you are an angel. You have found my beloved after all these years. I cannot express my gratitude," said the cut-off voice. "Judge, the story is long, and you need to be strong to hear it all," said Diego, while everyone was sitting in the living room. Contreras feeling the gravity of the moment. Contreras looked at Luisa with curiosity. "And who is this young man?" he asked. "This is Detective Luisa. She helped us find Mariana and unravel the whole story," explained Diego. "Luisa, thank you very much for everything you did." "I don't know how to thank you," said Contreras, stretching his hand. "It was a pleasure to help." "Judge, now let's sit down and talk," said Luisa, feeling the tension in the air. "Mariana was kidnapped by Hector, a bandit who wanted to get revenge on you. Kept her hidden for months," Luisa began, explaining the beginning of the story. Diego continued, taking over Luisa. "Hector discovered that Mariana was pregnant with you, Gabriel. He tried to use that against him, but the plan began to fail. There was an accident, and Mariana ended up hitting her head. Hector thought she had died, but survived," he explained, with a voice full of emotion. Luisa added, with a serious tone, "Hector was desperate to believe that Mariana had died, and took the baby to Elena's house in Ricardo Mendoza. Then he disappeared." Contreras heard everything in silence, processing the information. He began to put together the pieces of the puzzle. He looked at Diego, and the realization finally struck him. His eyes filled with tears, and he got up, trembling. "Then, does it mean that Diego is my son?" "I have a son," said Contreras, the voice full of emotion. He approached Diego, his eyes shining with love and incredulity. "Yes, Judge, I am your son," answered Diego, feeling the tears running down her face. Contreras hugged Diego with strength, the tears rolling freely. "My God, Diego, I didn't know he had a son." "This is a miracle," said the voice, trembling. The moment was pure emotion. Mariana, Luisa, and Diego remained silent, watching the scene with tears in their eyes. Contreras was taken by a feeling of gratitude and indescribable joy. He moved away a little, still holding Diego by the shoulders. "I cannot believe it. All these years without knowing. And now you are here in front of me. My son," said Contreras with a shrill voice. Luisa, perceiving the intensity of the moment, tried to calm the situation. "Judge, I know it's a lot to process, but Diego and Mariana need it now. Let's rebuild this story together," he said with an encouraging smile. Contreras felt, still hugging Diego. "Let's go, Luisa, let's go. I'm ready to face everything and rebuild our family," he said, determined. That night, sitting together in the living room, Diego, Mariana, Contreras, and Luisa began to trace the next steps. The day was far from ending, but the love and determination of all of them were palpable. Hector had been arrested by the authorities after the revelation of his actions, but Diego and Gabriel knew they needed to confront him one last time. The pain and anger they felt needed to be expressed, and the answers they were looking for could only come from Hector. With the permission of the authorities, they went to the prison where Hector was detained. Diego and Gabriel entered the prison's visit room, where Hector was already waiting for them, married and sitting in a chair. The atmosphere was cold and austere, reflecting the seriousness of the meeting. Hector looked up to find them, his expression a mixture of remorse and fatigue. "Hector, we are here to get answers. We want to understand why you did all this," started Diego, trying to control the anger in his voice. Hector sighed deeply before answering. I know you don't like it, and you have every right to feel that way. It all started with my resentment towards Gabriel. He sentenced me to 5 years in prison, and during all that time, I could only think of revenge, he said with a voice full of regret. Gabriel looked at Hector with a harsh expression. You destroyed lives, Hector, my life, the life of Mariana and our son. All because of your madness, he said with a trembling voice of emotion. Hector lowered his head, tears starting to flow. He didn't want it to come to this point. When I discovered that Mariana was pregnant, I saw an opportunity to use that against you, Gabriel. But everything went wrong. She tried to escape. There was an accident, and I thought he was dead. I panicked and took the baby to Elena and Ricardo Mendoza, the only ones I could trust, he explained, trying to justify his actions. Diego felt a mixture of anger and sorrow. You ruined our lives, Hector. But now it's too late for regrets. We're here to understand, to get a closure, he said, trying to keep calm. Eyes full of sadness. I know I can't undo what I did. I can only say that I am deeply sorry. Seeing what caused my hatred, seeing what they went through, fills me with remorse. I hope one day they can find peace, he said, his voice full of pain. Gabriel took a deep breath, trying to control his emotions. Hector, you're going to pay for your crimes. But I hope you really understand what you did and that this remorse is sincere. We need to move on, he said, getting up. Diego and Gabriel moved away, leaving Hector in the visitor room. The emotions were on the edge, but both knew that this confrontation was necessary. Now, we can start healing, Diego thought, as they left prison, ready to start a new stage in their lives. Diego, initially enraged by the omission of his adoptive parents, Elena and Ricardo, began to understand the complexity of the situation. He knew that they raised him with love, and they always did what they thought was best for him. Mom, I know they did what they could. He was angry, but now I understand. Thank you for everything, said Diego. Embracing Elena and Ricardo with sincerity, Elena, with tears in her eyes, held Diego with strength. We have always loved you, Diego. We wanted to protect you and give you a life full of love. You are our son, Diego, and you will always be. I am very proud of you, she said with a cut-off voice. The Contreras family, now complete, began to rebuild. Gabriel and Diego began to strengthen their father-son bond. They began to share important moments, getting to know each other better and building a solid relationship based on love and respect. Dad, I never thought I would say this, but I am happy that we have met. We have a lot to recover, said Diego, while they walked together through the park. Gabriel smiled with pride. Me too, son. And we will do it together. We are going to create new memories and live fully, he replied, holding Diego's shoulder. Mariana, on the other hand, recovered her life and place in the family. With the support of everyone, she began to rediscover her passions and build a better future. She and Gabriel found again the love that united them years ago, and together, they promised never to separate again. Mariana dedicated herself to rebuilding her life, rediscovering her passions and interests that she had left behind. She became involved in social projects, helping other women who faced similar traumas. Gabriel supported her in every step, and the love between them flourished again, stronger than ever. I am very happy to have them all back in my life. I feel that now I can really start again, Mariana said, emotional. Diego hugged her lovingly. We are all so happy, Mom. We are going to build a bright future together, he said, feeling the warmth of family love. The feather, symbol of love and redemption, was kept as a family treasure. It represented not only the challenges they faced, but also the strength and hope that united them. This feather brought us back. It is a symbol of our love and our family, said Mariana, holding the pen with affection. Diego was amazed, feeling grateful for everything they had overcome. "Yes, Mom, it is the symbol of a new beginning for all of us," he said with a smile. One night, gathered around the dining table, Diego, Gabriel, Mariana, Elena, and Luisa. The laughter and conversations filled the room, a testimony of love and resilience that united them. "For our future, full of hope and love," Diego said, raising his glass. "For our future," they all repeated, with smiles shining on their faces. And so, the Contreras family began a new journey, full of promises and possibilities. Could overcome any obstacle and build a life full of happiness and love. If you appreciated this story, please leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and leave your comment telling us your opinion about the story. Your support is very important to us, and now on your screen is appearing another exciting story for you. Have a good session.